thank you very much for joining us. My name is Isabella Donnelly and I work with Woodlands of Ireland, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Gerard Cahalane from the Department of Food, Agriculture and Marine, and he's going to be giving us a presentation on an overview of the regulatory requirements in regards native tree seed collection. So just before I introduce Gerard, I'm going to run through two quick housekeeping points. So if anybody has any questions that arise throughout the presentation, if you could just pop them into the Q&A, and we have about 10 or 15 minutes at the end to answer the questions. And also the webinar is being recorded, so just that everybody's aware of that, and the recording will be available in the next week or two. Okay, so I'll introduce you, Gerard, and I'll let you take over.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining the webinar, and thanks to Isabella and Joe from Woodlands of Ireland. It's all in the context of setting out the context for native tree seed collection. The previous webinar from Brian Clifford and Jenny Roach, and this is a follow-on on the regulations. Regulations are a heavy topic for a Friday afternoon, and hopefully I'll keep them as just general as possible and try and make it as practical as possible, because sometimes it can be difficult to interpret directives and exactly what are the requirements. And there's a focus in this in this talk on seed collection. So I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully the technology will work. We had a few glitches this morning, Isabella, quite a few actually, but please God, it'll work, and I hope you find it helpful to get an understanding.
That's great.
Thanks, Isabella. That's worked so far anyway. So it's an overview of the EU regulations concerning forest seed collection and the traceability of planting material. I'm going to cover the EU Council directive on the marketing of forestry productive material. And then I'm going to just give you a short overview of the OECD Forest Seed and Plant Scheme. This is a very important scheme internationally, which doesn't have a huge profile in Ireland, but we have been members of the scheme for a long period of time. And I think you'll find it interesting in the context of Brexit. And then I'm going to give you also a very short overview of the new EU plant health regulation regarding forest seed and plants. So a little bit of the heavy detail here, but we're not going to go into it. It's just to tell you that basically, apart from the Council directive, to actually operate it, there are several implementing pieces of legislation. A really important one is the first one listed in the bullet point, National List of Basic Material. Brian Clifford covered that in the previous webinar for Woodlands of Ireland. I'm going to outline a very significant amendment in August 2021. Legislation is always evolving, there's always changes. It's important to realise that. So there are legislative instruments there for prohibiting marketing to the end user. For example, France were concerned about Pinus pinaster from Spain because it was a lot of frost damage. So they used that decision to prohibit the use of that material in France. Small quantities of seed is very relevant to seed collectors, because I will come on and describe how you have to have your seed tested if you're selling it. But this decision allows a small quantity exemption. Equivalence for seed imports, well, that has been really significant for Brexit, because post-Brexit, GB are no longer in the FRM directive. So the equivalence of their certification scheme had to be recognised by two instruments this year. And then another one is assistance between member state authorities. And that is if material is moved within the 28 member states, the member state sending it has to tell the other member state within 3 months of that trade. So it's a help in terms of traceability. So to give, basically, you don't have to, this doesn't matter, it's just to outline that if you have an EU directive rather than a regulation, you have to implement it by national law. And that is done through a statutory instrument, 618/2002. And the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine is responsible for its implementation. I just wanted to make you aware at the bottom bullet point that there's currently a major EU review underway of plant reproductive material, referred to as PRM. And there's 13 directives in total for agriculture seeds, ranging from vines to cereals, etc. And then there's one for forestry. And the good news in this review is that forestry will be treated as a separate identity in this review, which is going to be completed over the next year or thereabouts. And the EU are currently going to a public consultation. And just to make you aware of that, and we will have it on our website, we have a link to that. Now, what is forest reproductive material? Well, basically, the term is used globally as FRM. And FRM is seeds and plants and cuttings, which are important for forestry purposes. The FRM directive only applies to the marketing of FRM, and the key word there is marketing. Marketing is defined as display with a view to sale, offering for sale, or delivery to another person, including delivery under a service contract. So that's a very important definition, and to realize that this directive is about marketing. So why is it there? It's not bureaucracy. It's basically to protect the consumer, to protect the person that's planting the forest. So it's not like planting agricultural seeds and you harvest it in a few months' time. Here you're talking of very long rotations, very long periods of time. And it's to ensure that the purchasers of forest seed or plants receives authentic, clearly identified material from an approved and suitable source. And it's all about, for me, I suppose a word is traceability. It's like everything you buy in the shops, food and so on, is to give you traceability back to source. So the directive takes account of the single market. We all have to realize that we live in one market. There is no border. There's 28 member states. And it accounts for that to allow FRM to move. Multifunctional role of forests is recognized. The principles of sustainable forest management are incorporated. The directive promotes the use of native species and local provenances, and it recognizes the importance of forest genetic resources. Directive regulates 46 species across the European Union, and not all of those are important for Ireland. Deals with Mediterranean species as well. I just mentioned Pinus pinastra, for example. It also covers the entire genus of Populus. So Populus tremula would be obviously of interest there. The native Irish species included are pedunculate and sessile oak, ash, common alder, grey alder, silver birch, downy birch, cherry, aspen, and Scots pine. And then the directive allows for member states to allow other species to be controlled, and we do that through the grant schemes. So really important here is the National List of Basic Material. Common perhaps term is the National Register of Seed Stands. And Brian Clifford has covered that previously. So if you like, it's the I suppose you could call it the warehouse or the store of the basic material, all of this, the seed stands, the seed orchards, etc. So there's a significant development in August 2021, this summer, in that there's now a new, it's a EU-wide list which allows electronic access to member states lists. So it's basically a single database where anybody can look and find all of the national seed stand register listings, and it's called Formatus. Only in FRM included in the list can be marketed, and the full national list of basic material that also incorporates all the other species which are not in the directive list. So we're going to have a go here actually of showing you how this operates. And we had some problems with this earlier, but Isabella might be able to help. So we'll just try it out by opening the link.
No, we're not seeing it yet, Gerard.
I'm going to share it now. Hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah, there it is.
So if you look here, I just want to accept, this is live now. So as you can see, forest material, reproductive material information system. I'm not going to go into the different aspects of it. It's being developed. There's also a map function, which will actually show where the seed stands are. But I'll give you a demonstration by going into Ireland, selecting Ireland, and then all the species for Ireland's national list of basic material turn up, which is 3 species: the category, the region, the material, the origin, etc. I choose 3 species. I'll go for Quercus petraea. You can see all the list of species there. There you'll see the list of Quercus petraea stands. I'll select. I'll show you here. You can see the 3 species. It's the selected category. This is the National Register reference number. And then it gives a little bit more detail here if you click, and it tells you where the provenance is. It's QPE3, it's Ballyvourney, it's latitude and longitude, and details of its that it's in the category selected. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to hopefully now open the presentation again. It'll operate. And can you see I'm back to the home page?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
So I was just mentioning there, this is a very important aspect of the directive, but there are 4 categories of forest reproductive material. They are source identified, and that's the lowest grade, so to speak. We have 1 region of provenance in Ireland, unlike other countries who have several regions of provenances. We have just 1 single one, because just from our location in the I suppose the northwest of Europe, there isn't really a basis to break down the country into regions of provenance. So we have 1 single one. And basically, if you're collecting from a seed source or from a stand, from a known location, it has no particular attributes. It's the lowest quality, but you know where it's coming from. And that could be a seed stand or a seed source. Selected then, you're phenotypically looking at characteristics of the stand for superior characteristics such as growth, form, freedom from disease, very phenotypic attributes. In qualified, then you're talking about seed orchards, and here you've selected superior individual trees, and then at the higher category again, and we have a number of qualified seed orchards. And then tested is, well, it can be a stand, but in the context of a seed orchard, by comparative testing, the superiority of the material has been demonstrated to give it the highest grade, the top of the class grading, tested. So they're the 4 categories to source identified, selected, qualified, and tested. So what must you do if you wish to supply FRM? Must be registered with the department. So all suppliers of FRM must be registered. Suppliers defined as any natural or legal person engaged professionally in marketing or importing FRM. It applies to seed collectors, seed suppliers, seed importers, nurseries, and plant suppliers. Seeds, plants placed in the market must be properly identified from collection to delivery to the end user. Seed collection procedures. The seed collector registers with the Forest Service. I'm just trying to give the steps here, kind of step by step. The seed collector applies in advance to the Forest Service for a seed collection permit. And this will include the identity number from the National Register, which we've just covered. remember to get permission from the landowner. And anything that goes along with that. It could be permits in the case of, I think Jenny Roach mentioned, MPWS land, etc. The permit allows for the Forest Service to carry out audits on the seed collection. That's part of the legal requirements. Following collection, seed collector applies for Master Certificate of Provenance. And this is a very important document. The Forest Service issues a Master Certificate of Provenance for that specific collection, and that seed collector retains the Master Certificate of Provenance. So here's an example of a seed permit issued by my colleague Cahalane. And as you can see here, it's basically a letter, and it has at the top, my cursor, it has at the top here the FRM registration number. And then it has the permit number, and it has the National Register number. And it basically says we received a request for a seed collection permit to collect seed in Ireland. Below you will find the particulars of the permit granted. Please note the permit number, which must appear in the labels used in the collection and must be quoted in any subsequent request for master cert. So that's the permit then, and then the seed collector can then go ahead. And then these are the type of labels. Thank you, Monica, for this slide, where you have different colors for the different categories. So you have green is selected, pink is qualified, and yellow is source identified. And if you can look at the labels here, you can see possibly make it out the permit number, the landowner, the town land, and the date, the common name, botanical name, and the various details that are required. But that's one way of doing it. We don't have to have the colors, but they are recommended. But that's not, they can be plain. This is an example of a Master Certificate of Provenance. So this is the key document. So you have the actual certificate number, the fact that it's in this case selected, again the critical National Register number, and then down here you have the seed collection permit number, and signed off by my colleague Cahalane. Then into the nursery, seed collector issues a seed supplier's document, which this incorporates the Master Certificate of Provenance number, and the specific provenance collection information. In addition, if you're marketing seed, the following information must be required: the purity of the seed, the germination percentage, the weight per 1,000 kilograms, and the germinal seeds per kilogram. That's only if you're trading or marketing seed. Now in red there, you see I have part exemption for prescribed small quantities. I mentioned there was a piece of legislation to allow for small quantities. So as an example, this list for various species, but under 40 kilograms doesn't need this test. Into the nursery then, you have basically the nursery plant suppliers must be registered, obviously. The seeds, the seed beds, the transplants, the plants must be clearly identified in the nursery. All the planting material sold must be accompanied to the end user by a supplier's document. And in Ireland, we call this the Provenance Declaration Form. This is the Provenance Declaration Form. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of it, but it's an enhancement on the EU requirements in terms of traceability. So you have Part A and Part B. Up here you have who is the supplier, the registration number, the Master Certificate number again is appearing, the National Register reference number is appearing, but we're actually asking for an individual sign-off that this is authentic material with the stamp of the supplier. And then in Part B, when it's received by the planter, they have to also complete a declaration about the material. And if let's say it's a farm, it's been planted and there's two different parts of the farm, well then that has to be indicated and the provenance details for the two plots have to be supplied. So that's if you like, the end user. We've got now to the end user. The person is now getting material which should be compliant, and they should have should be comfortable that they are getting material which is true to name. For the Forest Service grant scheme, we have specific non-regulatory requirements. All grant schemes require a provenance declaration form. And then there's a list of accepted seed origins and provenances and categories of FRM which are deemed to be suitable for grant aiding. Now, a very important thing that's often missed in this directive, outside all of the individual rules, is that all planting stock shall be of fair marketable quality by reference to general characteristics of health, vitality, and physiological quality. So it's like external quality standards. So moving on to just 2 slides now on, and then 2 slides on the EU plant health regulation. If you can hold with me there in terms of concentration, we've left the heavy stuff behind, but the OECD Forest Seed and Plant Scheme is a little bit unknown. It's been there since 1967. It was revised in 1974, again I think in 2007, and is under amendment all the time, like the EU regulation. The full name is the OECD Scheme for the Control of Forestry Reproductive Material Moving International Trade. It's an international certification tool to facilitate international trade in forest seed and plants. Objective of it is to that FRM is collected, transported, processed, and raised and distributed in a manner that ensures trueness to name. So it's not unlike the EU directive. And Ireland, the authority is again the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. If you look here to the right, it's moving out of our zone, but looking into Africa, there are a number of African countries. So here you can see the species Acacia Senegal. 29 countries, 18 EU member states, including Ireland, have always been a member, going back I think to 1974. The UK are significantly members. A number of European countries such as Switzerland and Norway, North American countries, USA and Canada, African countries such as Burkina Faso, Uganda, Madagascar, Rwanda, and Kenya. Very important, I think, in the developing world to develop certification systems, given the importance of trees in these localities. So the OECD scheme is broadly equivalent to the EU FRM directive. Post-Brexit, UK's FRM, it's become the UK's FRM system. So hence, it's important, I think, that we're aware very much now in Ireland of the OECD, as we should have been all along, but it's just that it's become particularly important now for trade. All imports and exports of FRM to and from the United Kingdom now require an OECD certificate. So that's the OECD scheme. And then just a couple of slides then. I'm not going to get into the specifics of plant health legislation, except to say that there is an overlap with forest reproductive material. And in essence, the new EU plant health regulation replaces the EU Plant Health Directive 2029 EC, which everybody, or most people, would be familiar with. The new regulation, it became actually effective in December of 2019, but 2020 was really the start, and we've had COVID, etc. But there are a lot of new requirements, and we can refer you separately to our Forest Health webpage and the Horticulture and Plant Health Division's webpage on that too for much more detail. It provides better protection of EU and Irish plant health. It's more focus on proactive action. There are stronger EU import controls from third countries. There's an enhanced EU plant passport system for the movement and borderless EU 28 member states internal market. I'm just making the point there that it is just one internal market and there are no frontiers, because that's the fundamental concept of the internal market, free movement of goods and services. So we have to operate within that regime. It hasn't been good for plant health, but hopefully the new plant health law will help in that regard. I have a slide here of emerald ash borer, and obviously this is like a pest which is of great concern to us. Should it also get in here in relation to ash dieback disease? Last year and the year before, there have been findings in the Ukraine which borders the EU. So it's getting closer. It's originally a Chinese insect. It's devastated ash in North America. So some of the reasons why we need to have very strict controls on third country imports. So under the new plant health regulation, all professional operators must register. Professional operators is the term here. So so outside of just the forest seed sector, that's importers of plants and plant products, nurseries, garden centres, multiple stores that trade in plants, landscape architects, local authorities such as county councils, etc., internet sellers and firewood merchants, etc. So narrowing it down then to FRM, you're talking about forest nurseries, forest seed and plant importers and brokers, all sellers of plant health regulated tree seed, and the species that are regulated are Pinus, Pseudotsuga, Prunus, and Castanea seed. All plants and above seed now require a plant passport moving between professional operators. That's a plant passport between professional operators. Plant passport is required to the final user for recognized protected zone pests. Protected zone pests are like on the right, oak processory moth, and we have been granted a protected zone for this species, this particular pest. And basically that requires a special plant passport. So a big improvement in the plant passport system, as there's now a new EU-wide plant passport with a common standard forward, and I'd show you a practical example of that. So this is the format of the new EU plant passport, and it must be used in all member states. On the left-hand corner here, the EU flag, the name plant passport, the botanical name, the member state registration number, which is the country code and a local number, a traceability code, and the country of origin. All A, B, C, and D must appear. If you go into any garden centre or into any of the multiples now and pick up a plant, you should be seeing this. And here's two practical examples. In the case of oak processory moth, it's a plant passport for a protected zone. This is a code for oak processory moth. This is I beg your pardon, sorry, excuse me. This is a protected zone for fire blight disease, Sorbus acuparia. So this is the code for fire blight disease. It lists the botanical name, the country of origin, the registration number, this is a batch number, and this is where the plants were produced. This one here is a oak, and this is for oak processory moth, plant passport, and for endocetic parasitic for chestnut blight disease. And here you have Quercus petraea. You have the country where the supplier is based. You have the traceability code, and actually you have the country of production here, the Netherlands. And finally, this one here for Populus tremula, again a plant passport in relation to hypoxylon matum disease. And then just a couple of slides, maybe just to lighten it a little bit before the questions. And thanks to Gerard for some of these seed slides. You can see here the label, very important to have a traceability on it. Again, you can see the labels, spindle and cherry. And then just final slide, excuse me. So for further information, advice, and on the services we provide, so they are the registration of seed stands, the registration of seed collectors, forest nurseries, seed and plant imports and brokers, seed collection permits, issuing of master certificates of provenance, certification of exports under OECD forest seed and plant scheme, and general advice on FRM and the associated plant health regulations. I will just try, because I think people sometimes, we have a new government-wide website where all the old Department of Agriculture website is gone, and they're all now centralized in a government website, and sometimes it can be hard to navigate. So we'll have a go at opening. I'll just see if I can open it. hopefully that's sharing now.
Yeah, we can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the parent homepage of the Department of Agriculture. And if you click on Forestry, you get all of the forestry areas. And there's the forest health one there that I mentioned. And here is where you get the material on FRM. Now, there are some ongoing updates on that. It's new on this website. So, but I just direct you to it. It just gives an overview, gives you the statutory instrument, gives you a link to the new formatted system, download the directive itself. And lots of people, I think, are asking about the National Register of Citizens can be downloaded here. And then the full list, which includes the non-regulated species. And then you have the OEC Forest Seed and Plant Scheme, a link there to their website. And then you have the reference I mentioned to the EU review of FRM, and there's the contact details. So I need now to exit that. I'll be careful here now. I need to go back to the home page, excuse me, and share. It worked. Didn't work earlier, I can tell you, but thankfully it worked. So thank you very much, and I'd like to acknowledge also my colleagues working in this area. So I'll hand you back to Isabella. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Gerard.